Hello, Lizzie here, and today we're going to make up Delia Carry It. So this is the pattern that you'll get when you download it from my website, lizzycurtis.com. And it's a beautiful bag. It really is a lovely bag. It's kind of got the look of a satchel, where you've got the flap coming right over and quite low, and we've got clips here, swivel clips to join the two pieces together, so the bag piece to the flap, making it really good for security. But we can undo those because I want to show you another way you could do these clips if you want to, but I've used swivel clips because I'm thinking security. So these little tabs just hang down with your hardware there, and this is the flap, and you can see how they hang. They're hanging sort of, you know, quite nicely off the bottom edge of the flap there. And then you've got a nice big pocket. So deliberately I've made this with it's kind of like a gusset, but it's not a gusset. It's got a definite shape to it that you can iron that shape down, and we'll look at it in closer detail as we go along. But it's a really nice big pocket, and you could easily get a phone in there. So that's how that works. And because if you want to, you could just have it lying flat like that, and when you lift it up you've only got the tabs down there, so that's up to you. We've got tabs on the side, and they're in the gusset, so there's a seam line in the gusset where you actually put your tabs in. We'll go through all of that step by step. You've got the hardware on there as well, you've got the D-rings, and you've got the swivel clips, and I think that works quite well. I mean, I don't know what you do if you would detach it. You could perhaps make a smaller handle if you wanted to, but it's just a feature really rather than being functional. But it is adjustable, so the pattern tells you how much to put in for your strap of the webbing, and you could make the strap out of the fabric. You don't have to do as I've done. I quite like how this looks with the contrasting webbing. No pockets inside, but you add as many pockets as you like inside. I'm sure you know how to add a rectangular pocket. That's easy enough. But what we do have on the back is a lovely zippy pocket installed into the fabric. So there's a little bit of cutting and measuring to do, but not much. And it's quite deep as well. I can get my whole hand in there. So, you know, you could put real valuables in there, because this obviously would go to your side, to your body side. So you could put some valuables in there if you wanted to, maybe a wallet, anything like that. So this is Delia Carry It. The whole range for this month is Store It, Carry It, Love It, and you get the 3 patterns, as you know, regularly every month. So this is Delia, so I'm going to take you through how to make it. I'll just pop her to one side. I could pop her behind me actually. Let's do that. Let's do that. There we go, Delia, you sit there. Right, so when we start looking at the pattern, and everything is in there that you need, all the measurements, how much fabric you need. I don't think I've left anything out. On my webbing that I've done for the strap, I've used rivets. Now I'm not going to this demonstration, I'm going to just join the webbing to itself with a zigzag stitch. And that's entirely up to you what you do, but I thought I'd show you both ways and then you can choose. Oh, and talking of both ways, I did think that you could, if you wanted to, purchase these buckles, okay? And they're the sort of buckles that you squeeze and pull out. And you could put those on the front of the bag instead of the swivel and the clips, and I just thought it was actually quite a nice option. They're readily available on places like Amazon as usual, and they're called plastic buckles. So there you go and see if you can find those, and they are 1 inch here, so all my straps are 1 inch, and so it fits nicely. I would put the prongy bits on the actual flap and this on the base. You please yourself, but that's another option if you didn't want to use all that hardware. That's up to you. So if we start looking through the pattern, it talks to us straight away about the kind of preparation work that you need to do before you actually launch into the main sort of stitching of the bag. Now I might as well put this to one side because I'll just go. So you also have the tabs that go into the gusset as well, which I've already done, but we're going to do 1 or 2 of these so you know how they go. So with the tabs, you'll need 6 of those all together. It says everything that you need in the pattern. It tells you how big they should be. You're going to iron in 1/4 of an inch, and the picture's very clear about what that looks like. Then you're going to fold those 2 edges together and just going to top stitch down both sides. Do that, both sides. It always looks lovely and neat. And all you're going to do to apply either the swivel clip or the D-ring is just to pop it through. So all you're doing is popping it through here and folding it back on itself. And I've got the most glorious fabric. It's zebras and hippos. You'll love it. And then all you're going to do now, and we'll do this now, you're going to stitch these 2 ends together. And if I show you the one that I've already done, you're going to stitch those 2 ends together here. And then you're going to get the foot of your machine right up close to your buckle, to your tab here, your swivel clip, and then you're going to stitch those together there just to secure that swivel clip in place. That doesn't want to go anywhere. If you don't do that, it'll slide right down to here, and it's much better to have it contained there. So let's just stitch that one, and then we'll be ready to start doing other preparation work. So I'll bring the machine in, and so it's just stitching the 2 ends together. And if you find that one side of your tab is looking prettier than the other, then just think about what side is going to show, you know, when you actually have it in your bag, on your bag. So let's, I haven't got the machine that cuts the threads, so we're going to be all over the place with threads today. So just trim those threads, keep everything nice and neat. So that's the 2 ends joined here. So now all I'm going to do is machine across there to contain that swivel clip. And so the foot of the machine goes as far as I dare up to the swivel clip. And to be honest, it's a bit like putting a zip in. The foot will follow that. So 1 stitch, 1, 2 stitches back just to maintain that strength right the way across. I'm using a regular stitch of 2.5 here, and then right up to the end, a couple of stitches back, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to do lots and lots of back stitching here. It can get a little ugly if you do that. So that's our clips and our D-rings done. So I've got 2 already installed into my gusset on the side. We'll get to that and you'll see what that looks like. So then I've got 2 for the flap of my bag, and then I've got 2 for the base of my bag. Okay. Now, if we look at the base, and if we actually, we could look at the pattern pieces, because that might be useful for you to see that everything is marked out. So let's find the front of the bag, which is the back of the bag as well, but if we get to the right one, here we go. It actually tells you on the pattern piece where to put your, there's a placement guide for where to put your bottom clip, and then on the flap as well, then, oh, that's not the flap. On the flap as well, it gives you a position of where to put the swivel clips. So as we go through it, you'll see. Let me just get to that. Here we go. So there we are. So that's the flap, and so you can see you've got the 2 placement lines there, and it's the top of the clip that goes there. So if I hold that, you'll see, if I can get it right, that's where it goes. Okay, it doesn't go over the top. Let me get it. It doesn't go like that. It goes down here. Okay, so we'll sort of do that as we go along. So when we come to the actual bag front, okay, there's my, isn't that fabric glorious? There's a couple of things we need to do with this bag front. Firstly is to put the swivel clips on, but not the clips. I'll get this right in a minute. The D-rings you're going to put on. You're going to put the D-rings across here, but in a little while. First thing we have to do is to put the pocket on. Now on that pattern piece I just showed you before, it shows you the placement line of where to put the pocket. Okay, so there's no guessing. And what I've done is, and I can show you exactly what I've done. Let me just find my pattern piece, as it might be easier. There we go. So there's my pattern piece. And if we have a look at it on the side there, which is a lovely view, you can see it well, is that's obviously the half part of the pattern. And what I've done is, do you see it says placement guide for pocket front? And all I've done is folded that back put it to my pattern, make sure my pattern is all lined up here, and I've literally drawn a line just down here so I know where that pocket's going to go, and you can see that line, and I've done the same on this side as well, and it just makes it easier. I mean, you could put pins there if you wanted to, but literally I've just drawn a line, do you see? And then down at the bottom here I've got my lines here for my placement of my tabs. Okay, so my D-rings will be stitched there. Okay, and then we'll do that in a little while, but we'll just prepare the pocket first. So now you can see how I transferred the designs. I literally fold the paper pattern pieces up. So with the pocket, you're getting two pieces. We need to cut two pieces. You need to cut one in the lining and one in the outer fabric, and then you need to stitch some darts. So if I show you this way, these are the darts, and the pattern piece is like an open V, and you're just stitching those together. So if you have a look at mine, you can see how that's stitched. It's literally 1/4 of an inch, and then you're just bringing those two together, and it makes a lovely shape. So if we look at it again, it does make a lovely shape. And the other thing is you're going to stitch across here to join the two pieces together, and then what we need to do is actually stitch this together with a turning gap. And you can put the turning gap anywhere you like. If you want to put it along here or along the bottom, I think along the bottom would be best. And so all we're going to do is stitch along here, stop, leave a turning gap, and stitch along here, turn through, give it a press, and then we can actually then pin it down onto our main bag piece. So we'll do that now. So let's just bring the machine in. So there's my two pieces. It's got my lining, my outer. I've already put all my stabiliser on and my wadding, except for the back of the bag, okay? I put the stabiliser on, but not the wadding, because we need to do something before we do that. So, and I'll show you. So just so you know, let me just make that stitch a wee bit bigger. So everything has been stabilised. And everything has had its wadding put on. Just a spray adhesive to hold that down. A fabric spray, you can get them again anywhere. They're so readily available, really are. Just go on to, well, just put into Google or any search engine, temporary fabric spray, and you'll find some. There's lots of brands out there, and to be honest, I really don't like recommending one particular brand. Unless they sponsor me. So straight up the other side. So I've left my turning gap, and what I'd like to do is bring my iron up, because pressing is key. I can't get over enough how important pressing is with every stage. It makes everything so much neater and looks much more professional if it's been pressed at every stage. Now if you want to, you could, or let's just cut those corners off. If you wanted to, you could top stitch the top of this pocket. That's entirely up to you. I'm just trying to think, won't I? I'll make up my mind when I've finished pressing it. So turning through, and you could use a tool. Let's get our little parchment tool out. It's my favourite tool for turning. You can get them where they've got thinner or fatter little balls on the end, so you can decide what's best for you, and just get into those corners as best you can. Make it nice and crispy. Take your time, don't have to rush, don't have to do it as quickly as this, and push out all those curves. So it's the curves that are going to make your bag look a professionally made bag, attractive. You'll like looking at it, it'll be pleasing to the eye. Okay, so that's all pushed out. So I'm going to give it a press, and take your time on that. Again, like I say, just put a little bit of effort in, and where you've got the turning gap, let's just trim our threads, and I wouldn't even bother about stitching this or hand stitching or anything like that. I would just press it 1/4 of an inch, same as your seam allowance, and as long as you do it quite straight, nobody's going to see that that's a turning gap, and that'll be just top stitched along with the rest of the pocket. Okay, and try and get into those curves. And to be honest, we're going to do a little bit more ironing with this when it's done. But for the moment, we'll do that. Oh, and with the pocket, I'm laughing because I know what I've done. With the pocket, I've put the hippo and the zebra right in the middle. I love it. It's so not me, but I'm kind of trying to get out my comfort zone. Right, so you remember we put the lines on the front of the bag. So you can see I've got the wadding on there as well. The stabiliser is underneath, so it gives the bag a little bit more substance. So now all I'm going to do is pin this on, and you'll find that your pocket is much wider, and that's intentional. So all you need to do is line it up with the lines and pop a pin in. And do the same on the other side. So bring that edge in. See if we can do that. There we go. And then what's going to happen there, you can see, look, do you see how that's gaping? Well, it's going to eventually be folded back and pressed. If you look at the original one, we'll have another look at it later, it's got a pleat going down each side, okay? So you're not to worry about that at the moment. So now all you need to do is line up. So draw the line. So on the bag pattern, let's see if we can pick it up here. So on the pattern itself, you'll see that the placement line for the pocket is there. So just put a little mark of where the bottom of that pocket should be. And again, pop a little pin in there. Let's see, I think that's about right. And that'll hold it all together. So you can see what that looks like now. Okay. I like that fabric, it's growing on me. So what you're doing is that you're going to top stitch the pocket down all the way around, and you're going to try and keep these edges straight. Do you see how straight they look? They're coming parallel down with the side of the bag here. So try and keep that as parallel as you can. And there'll come a point when you come to the curve that it will naturally go in. So don't try to force it straight. It's not going to be a pocket that's a dead 90 degrees. It's curved, okay? So we'll top stitch that down. And again, don't forget this is a pocket. So it needs a nice sort of strong stitch at the beginning and the end of the stitching. And if you wanted to do a little sort of triangle, do that. It would look quite nice. So a few little stitches forward and backwards. And I suppose I'm stitching, well, I suppose it is a little bit less than an eighth of an inch. I wouldn't say it was a 16th, so somewhere in between. And then just work out where your bag is going to sit, and just bring it round. Just follow the line. As I say, it won't probably, let's just try and make sure we've got that straight. It won't, I mean, depending on how much seam allowance you did and all the rest, it might not follow the placement line exactly, but it will give you a very, very clear idea of where it will go. So I'm just making sure that that is nice and straight. And of course I've top stitched now the turning gap. So that's made that really lovely and neat. If you've got the needle down facility, please use it. Mine's a bit sticky on this machine, so I don't use it, because I have to hold the button down for ages before it actually engages. So, but I like this little machine for all its foibles. There we go. Let's get my scissors. Try and keep neat as we go. It's difficult if you haven't got a thread cutter. I do appreciate that, and I think I say that every time I don't use it. Right, so there's the pocket on the front. So you can see what it looks like. Let's try and pick that up so you can see. That's how it looks, okay? It looks gapey, meant to be. So what you're going to do now is you're going to press that. You're going to kind of pleat it. And it's going to be, what would it be? Just about 3/8 of an inch of a pleat. So I'll bring my iron in and just do that so it's neat. I think this fabric's lovely. Yep. So yeah, so just fold that. There's no hard and fast rule. There's nothing to say that it's got to be 3/8 of an inch. It's however you've placed it will determine how that sits. But I personally, I think it sits better if it's been pleated. You don't have to. You could leave it sort of curved. The flap's going to come over anyway. So now look, I think that looks quite nice, doesn't it? Just checking my stitching there. So now all you've got to do is to put the D-rings on. Let's get the right thing. So again, if you remember, I made the little marks here. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at that on the side camera. Let's just have a quick look. So I'm just going to place it there. In fact, I'll use a clip because it's a little more weight to all of this. It can take a clip quite well. So there's one D-ring. There's the other. Let's just move that in a bit. There we go. So that's placed on the two marks that I made. So all I'm going to do is stay stitch those in place. Then I can forget about them. Otherwise we can't work with clips. It's just crazy. So stay stitch, get rid of the clips. And it makes life easier. So, and I'm just going to carry on going all the way across the bottom of the bag. You might as well. You waste as much thread by, oops, that's it, caught it now. You waste as much thread by actually cutting your threads off. So let's just trim those threads. Keep it neat. That's it. So look, that's how it looks. So that's your front of your bag, okay? So you've done your pocket, you've put the D-rings on. So to complement that, we ought to do the flap really and make sure that the D-rings have gone on there before we put the flap together. So I'll pop that to one side. So again, these are the two flap pieces. So we've got our lining and we've got our outer, the hippos again, trying to get that central. And again, there'll be marks which I've already put on the pattern. Now let's see if I can find my pattern piece fairly quickly. Here we go. So those are the marks there. And do you see how I folded it? So I fold it, I place it over the top, I get my pen and I draw the lines that's been designated on the pattern. So it's all now super easy. So with the swivel clips, we've got raw ends here, raw edges, so you just want to turn those over 1/4 of an inch so they look quite neat. And same both sides, so just turn it over 1/4 of an inch, thereabouts, I'm not measuring. And then you're just going to stitch those in place. So you can make a little box if you want to, or you can just go straight across. But go over the top of all the layers, so you're catching that little fold under there. You could, if you think it through, you could turn that 1/4 of an inch before you put the swivel clips on here. That's up to you. So we're putting the folded edge or the neat edge on that line, okay? And all you want to do is to make sure that your swivel clips just hang just nearly to the edge. I'll show you in a sec. So I'm just going to stitch these on. So I'm making sure that I'm going through all of the layers. So a couple of stitches forward, a couple of stitches back, and then straight across. I'm trying to get my threads out of the way. Straight across, and we could do a little box. So with a little box, you're just stitching a rectangle. I would make it, let's say, 1/4 of an inch deep. It just, I suppose it's security, isn't it? And I'm following the stitches down of my top stitching, so they're kind of hidden, and now I'm coming across. So right onto my stitch line, just adjust if you need to, try and keep it neat, and then back stitch, and then take it out of the machine. I'll use my scissors to do that, just so we can cut the threads as we go. There we go. So if I show you on this camera here how that looks, look, and you can see I've made a little box there, and it just neatens it all up. And can you see where the swivel clip is? It should sit somewhere around about there. Okay, so when you actually stitch all of these together, the lining and the outer, that should just hang just proud of your flap. So if I do the same on the other side, so all I'm doing is folding that under. Okay, so if I do that, you can see I'm just folding it under. Like I said, you can do that before you actually stitch the flaps, stitch the tabs. That's up to you. There's always different options for different things, isn't there? And I can only sort of cover so many things and so many different options. Again, I'm just going to come down about 1/4 inch, try and get it so it's the same as the other side. Just keep checking. It's one of those things that you might notice when you start to use it and wear it, that one box is bigger than the other. It's a little thing. And just make sure your needle goes into that stitching line that you did on the tab when you top stitched it. Up to where we started, little back stitch there just to secure those stitches, and then we'll just cut the threads. So there's our two, they look nice, don't they, the swivel clips. So that's done, but what we can do is put right sides together with our lining. So right sides together. I'm just going to snip these threads. That's it. Right sides together, and you're going to stitch around the curve. Okay, so you're ignoring this top bit. You're stitching around the curve, and obviously when you get to these bits, you're going to poke them in. So right sides together. If you want to clip this together or pin it, please do that. It would take me longer to do that than to actually stitch it if I'm showing you, so I tend to miss that bit out. I seem to get away with it. So just gradually round your curve. Don't forget, if you want to, because you're stitching curves, to reduce your stitch length, you get a smoother curve. So sometimes it's worth doing. So tuck your little tags in there, your tabs. And round, going nicely around that curve. And again, on the outside fabric, the hippo and the zebra fabric, I've got stabiliser and wadding. I'm using 80/20. It's a nice thin wadding, but it just gives a nice little bit of softness to whatever you make. And oftentimes I'll use 2 layers. It's just my choice. Now, when you come to actually these curves, can I suggest you use pinking shears? Because it really makes a neat job of turning these curves. So a little, and only do the corners. Don't worry about the curves, the corners. Don't worry about the rest of the bag. There we go. I've got my Ava there today, so Ava is catching all my bits. And again, you could top stitch this flap if you want to. I did on that one. I'm just trying to think, did I? Didn't I? Yeah, top stitch. So turn it through. Because I make so many things, sometimes I forget what I've done for each thing individually. That's why I often check, and that's why I get my words muddled up as well sometimes. Mind you, that could be age. Right, so look, hasn't been pressed. It looks a mess. If you haven't pressed it, it looks a mess. Look, it looks a mess. So press it, please, 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 please. And try and get your lining not to show on the outside edge. So just keep pushing that lining to the back. It doesn't mind. Honestly, it won't be offended. And it looks much better. Oh, I quite like this fabric. I wondered how I'd feel about using this fabric, but I wanted to do something really different. And I have. So give the lining a bit of a press as well. Right, so let's top stitch. So again, this is where you need to increase your stitch length. I like to use 3, but you might find that you want to just keep it on 2.5 the whole time, that's fine. But we're also going to stay stitch this top edge. So not only are we going to top stitch beautifully all the way around, I'm just going to zing along the top there as well, and that holds all my layers together, so I don't have to worry about layers anymore. It just ends up being one piece of fabric. So I'm stitching probably 1/4 inch from the edge. Make it a feature. So let's make sure my stitch length is up. I was just about to say you don't need to back stitch, and I just did. So you can, if you want, keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on it, just take your time. This is the sort of thing that you will see. A bit like the box, you'll see it. So just take your time. Move your fabric as you're going around, and let the machine do its thing. Don't force anything. It's a very gentle movement. Just follow it around. And you can stop and you can readjust. If you're not confident with doing this, please use a decorative stitch. It masks so much. So I've done my top stitching. It's not bad. And now I'm going to go across the top just to stay stitch those 2 pieces together. Got a little bit of a pleat there. Walking foot. I say it and never do it. So, there we go. I might just undo that stitch there to ease that fabric, because I don't want a little pleat. Thank you very much. It's where my fabric slipped. So I'm just going to undo a few of those stitches and ease that fabric in. That's fine now. Just trim that little bit of fraying. Okay, and then while my iron is still hot, let's bring my little mat up and just give that little piece an iron, and that'll put, it was a teeny weeny little pucker there, and now that's gone. So again, little tip there, don't live with that if that's something that you know is going to upset you. So let's have a look at the front here. So you can see the top stitch going around. Look, you can see where that little pucker is, but actually now that's ironed out, so that I'm happy with that. And it looks rather cute. The hippo with the bird. Is it a bird? Yeah. Yeah, anyway, so that stays stitched across there, and my hardware is in place. So that's the flap done. We can put that to one side now. And we can Have you ever wondered what the Gold Club is all about? So many people message me, what is the Gold Club? Okay, simply it's my online sewing group, okay, mainly based on Facebook, where we have a bit of a natter every day. We do Facebook Lives and make all sorts of things. But if you go to my website, lizzycurtis.com, you'll see a Join Gold tab on the top there. And all that means is that you click on that, and you buy it. So for £5, which in dollars is about $6.30, depending on exchange rates and times, you will get 3 patterns every month. I know, it's mad. If you look at the price of my patterns in the shop, generally they're now $4.99. The value of the Gold Club online membership at this point in time is just £5 a month. So you're getting the 3 free patterns every month, and they're all made by me, designed for you. Easy, moderate, fairly difficult. Then we have the Facebook to back that up all as well, the Facebook group. So we have a wonderful time in there. We're all great friends. So if you want to join a great online sewing community, join Lizzy's Gold Club. And we can start looking at the back of the bag. Now this is quite different, okay, because we're going to put a zip in. So let's get my bits up here. So I've done quite a bit of the preliminary work because this can take a little while to do. On the pattern, let's see if we can find it again. Oh, it's around here somewhere. Here it is. You'll have, can you see, you've got a placement line here for the zip, It's like a letterbox that we're going to make. If you followed me before, we've done this several times, but it's always good to have a refresher. And it's got an arrow on the end, and that's where the end of the box should be. And you're going to draw that onto your piece, your backing piece here, right? So this is why we haven't put the wadding on yet. You can see how the wadding looks, but we need to draw on this fabric, and I'll show you in better detail in a sec. So you're going to draw this line, and if you can see, I've actually folded that over again and used that edge that I can see as my guide of where to put the letterbox, okay? So let me show you on the side view here, okay? So I've drawn my letterbox and I've cut it because I want to be a little bit ahead of the game. So if I hold that up to the bag, here we go. You can see, let's put it in the right position. You can see what I've done here, okay? So there's the mark here. You can just about see it, of the placement line for the zip. And I've drawn that line going all the way across. And I've drawn it all the way across here, okay? And then what I've done is drawn 1/4 inch either side of that. You can see that's the blue line, you can see is the 1/4 inch mark away from that first line, okay? Now it doesn't have to be that wide, you can make it smaller if you want to. In actual fact, you could take it all the way across, but you wouldn't need to perhaps make a box. You could just put a standard zip in. But this, I quite like this effect. I quite like how a letterbox looks on with a zip. So that's why we've not put the wadding on, okay? Because you need to draw on your stabilizer, because obviously that's the front of the fabric. This is the stabilized back of the fabric. So you're drawing in that letterbox, okay? And you're putting little V's in. So where you stop drawing, and you can just about see a little line there of where I stopped drawing. And then I've cut that back, okay? I've cut it back. So there's a little V there, okay? You can see that quite clearly. And so when you've done that, cut it as I've done there. But also what you need to do is prepare your wadding, and what you're doing with your wadding is actually cutting out the whole letterbox shape, okay? And then once we put this on the bag, it'll fit pretty much perfectly, let's hope. So that's how we've got it. So the next thing to do is to actually, what you need to do is bend these back onto some quilter's tape, okay? It's probably best to use quilter's tape rather than pins. And I know I harp on about quilter's tape a lot, but it is our friend. It really is absolutely superb. It truly is. So let's just take this piece off because I don't need that at the moment. Let's just take it away. So what I've got here is quilter's tape. Let me just hold that up so I can show you. I've got quilter's tape all the way around the letterbox on my wadding. And what we're going to do is fold these edges over onto that tape to hold all of that together, okay? So I'm going to do that now, and then what I'll do is I'll get my spray, my fabric temporary spray, and just spray that so that stays in place. But we're going to work on this. So just make sure that your tape is well pressed down, and so you're left with the sticky glue. You might need to rub the end. Just take your time. There's no rush, no rush. And it's a you know, if you've never used quilter's tape before, please get some. It's not expensive. Truly, it's not expensive. Thank goodness, because I use a ton of it. So position that over your letterbox so it's pretty much okay. And then you're just going to take your fabric over the top of your wadding onto the tape, okay? So it'll take a moment to do this, but take your time, like I said, and just do a little bit at a time, okay? A little bit at a time. Just fold it over. Do one side, then do the other. So what you end up with is a really nice folded, neat edge. And if the interfacing was ironed on properly, that would sit down quite nicely. And then once you've done that, I might just get my iron on that, because you want this to be really well glued, if you like. So you could see if you didn't glue this with the quilter's tape, it would be quite difficult to hold all this in place. Truly it would. So I'm just helping that stick down. So I don't think my interfacing went right up to the edge. So again, all I'm doing is folding over the other half, and once I've done that, and I'm taking my time, I don't want to rush this, and I tell you why. Because the letterbox is your straight edge that's going to go on the zip and what you're going to see on your bag, and it wants to be a nice straight edge, okay, not curvy, just nice and straight. So again, I'm just going to get my iron in there. I must admit, always with interfacing, I would imagine I know I'm doing this on my mat. Don't do this on your mat. But I've got it switched off actually, so it's just I'm using just the tip of the iron just to hold that down. I think we're okay now. And then, so you can see, look, I've done the two long edges. So now you're going to bring those little tiny triangles at each end, and you're just going to flip those over, and you might need to manipulate that a little bit, and that tape will hold it beautifully in place. There we go. Lovely. And we're just going to have a look at it from the front. So if I show you on the side, that's what my letterbox looks like. It's not too bad at all. If I show you on the back, you can see how all of this is flipped over and folded over, and it would be difficult to do that without the quilter's tape. So now all I'm going to do is just put a little bit of spray on my interfacing. I want to put a little bit here as well. Whoops, just a wee bit. There we go, that'll do. And just push that down. And that'll keep all of that in place, ready for stitching. So now we've made our letterbox, there we go, you can see it. Might have to trim that a little bit at the top, you see, it's just poking out. So now we have to put the zip in. Okay, so on my zip, I've cut it far bigger. In fact, yeah, it's probably just a wee bit bigger than the bag, but that's fine because we trim that back. So on the right side of my zip, again, I've put quilter's tape because we're going to stick it down onto our bag, and that's what keeps everything in place. It's just a joy. So I'm just going to strip that back. So I'm going to take the tape off, and again, if it doesn't want to come up for the first time, just put your nail on it, strip it off, and then you're flipping it over, and you need to make sure that your zip slider is inside the letterbox, okay, and then just pop it over the top. Okay, now you might need to adjust this because there's no way that's going to be perfect first time. So when we look at it, and also because this zip is an open-ended zip, because I've cut it off a reel, you'll find that your two ends are splaying out, so you want to make sure those ends come in, and you can always stitch that prior to putting it in your bag, but I just kind of tell it who's boss, if you like, and bring those ends together. Let's just maneuver that a little bit. There we go. Let's get my head over the top of it. So I want to, just to make sure that I've got the same amount of tape either side. So in other words, I want that zip to be right in the centre. Let's just do it up, squidge it down a bit. That's it. Let the tape do its job. And there is my zip, literally glued down. Can you see? Obviously we need to top stitch it, okay? Now when we top stitch this, we need to put part of the lining in for the pocket. So I just want to poke that little bit of The little triangle at the end doesn't want to stick, so we're just going to tell it who's boss. There we go, that's better. I'm happier with that. Yes, so we want to put one part of the pocket in, which is going to be the lining fabric. So if I can find that. Oh, here we are. Down here. So it's cut on the fold, and although you get the perfect, like that, if you put the two ends together, obviously you get the perfect fold. And I say to fold in half, but in actual fact, one end's going to be slightly longer than the other, so it's not really cut on the pressed on the fold. You'll see in a sec what I'm talking about. But the first thing we need to do is to stitch the side that's going to be, it's going to be your inside. So when you put your hand in your pocket, it's the part that the palm of your hand will go against, okay, the inside part. So when we look at it here, let's have a look. Let's make sure we get the right way around. You know, you always have to think about it. I need to go that way. That's it. So it's, and let me show you on this side view. So when you look at it like that, that's how it wants to be. So let's just bring it in so you can see it. So this is my pocket piece. Okay. So I'm just flipping it so the raw edge is against the tape. The edge of the tape, okay, and it wants to be this. It wants to be right in the centre. So you could always find the centre of your bag, find the centre of your pocket, and make sure it's placed in the right place, okay. But that's where your pocket is going to go, and we're going to stitch this down. So we stitch the zip, and we stitch the pocket, okay. So there's nothing difficult about this. Just have a look at what I'm doing. So there's your zip. This is the wrong side of the zip. You've got the right side of your pocket piece, and it just sits over the top. So just make sure that's what yours looks like. Now, what I really want to do is to put some more quilter's tape along here just to hold it. It is definitely the best option because we're going to stitch this from the other side. I won't be able to see this, and I don't want it to wriggle. You could put pins in there. I don't stitch over pins, and I don't want to remove them from the underside. You'll see what I mean in a sec. So if I move this out the way, a lot of this zip's going to be actually cut away, but we'll put the tape right across. And you'll want to get your zipper foot out to stitch this on. I'm going to stick with my regular foot for the time being. I'm sure it'll be fine. But obviously you've got to be careful when you go over your slider. So press your tape down, give it a little squidge on the end, like I said before with your nail, just squidge it down, and that then allows you just to lift the back of the tape off. And then you can just lay that over the top again, okay? So just find that centre position and just stick it down. Look at that, absolutely fab. And now I don't have to worry about that at all. And if I flip this over, this is how it looks. Okay, I need to trim my wadding. It's gone on a journey. So now I'm going to stitch this bottom part here. So if we lift that up, okay, that's. Let me just cut this away because it's a little bit distracting. So there's the bottom of my pocket there. Look. So I'm going to stitch on the bottom part of my zip there, and I'm going to do that with my regular foot, but you can use a zipper foot if you want to. And I'm just going to close that up so my zip stays in position, and if any of that isn't sitting right, you can always shift it. This is still a temporary tape. This is wash away tape, so you do have to stitch. So all I'm going to do is stitch from this corner here to this corner here. I'm not going to do anything else because I want to flip that pocket under and finish stitching this top part of the letterbox. So just from there to there. So let's bring the machine in. And because everything is glued, it's great, really super. So, gosh, I've never known so many threads. I'm not used to having threads. So a couple of stitches forward, a couple of stitches back. Don't overdo it. Make sure those threads keep out of the way because we just don't want them to be nested. And again, just have a look at your zip as you're going along, just to make sure that you're comfortable with the position of it, and adjust where you think necessary. Okay, you've only glued it, you've done nothing else, so it's fully adjustable still. So I'm just coming right down the bottom of that letterbox, and it's perfectly fine. I know some of you are a little scared of zips, but truly they're not scary. I don't know why people are scared. Well, no, I do. I think I would be as well if I was a newbie. So I've just gone from one side to the other. I've not gone up my letterbox and I haven't gone across. I've just gone that one line. Okay, so let's take it out of the machine. So if I hold it up to the side here, you can see where I've stitched from there across to there, and this is how your piece will look. Your pocket sticking out and your bag back like this. Now we do need to stitch around our letterbox. We do need to come around here to make it neat, but we need to get rid of the pocket. We don't want to stitch that. So flip that right back. So flip it back, pop a pin in there if you want to hold that in position, and then we're just going to pop it under the machine like that. So the pocket is way out of the way. You can see I've trimmed my zips off now. So we're going to up here, across here and down, and then we'll go on to top stitch that top edge. So I'll just do that now, bring the machine in. And again, just be careful of your threads that they don't nest, and you're going to pop your needle right down where you finished off when you did that long stitch across the bottom of the zip. So let's just, lost my foot, there we go. So a couple of stitches forward, a couple of stitches back, and then over the top of your zip teeth, and just one stitch from the edge, and then you're coming down. Get your zip slider out of the way so you can see your whole pocket is out here. Okay, you don't want to stitch that. All the way across the top. If you come to that slider, just lift your foot up, move that slider out of the way. If you've still got your zipper foot on, if you still use that, then you don't need to do that. It's far enough away. And then just come up to that corner, the second corner, and then you're just coming over the top of your zipper teeth down to where you started stitching before, and a little back stitch there, and then you're done. And that will actually encase your zip into the whole thing. So we'll just trim those threads away. So let's move the machine. So now you can see that our letterbox is complete, and we've got a little gap there. And the next stage is actually then to stitch the pocket up. So if I turn it back to this camera here, now ideally you're going to press that, okay? I'm tempted. In fact, let me do it because that really does make a difference. If it's not pressed, sometimes that lining fabric can shift, and you don't really want to stitch over that by mistake. That would be such a shame. So give it a little press. It's worth it. There we go, looking good. Let's turn that off. Super hot. Okay, so I've turned it back. Look, that's what it looks like. So now all I'm going to do is take this end part. Let me show you on the side view, it's much easier. So I've folded it back and pressed it. Okay, so we're looking at the wrong side of the bag. That's the back of the slider. So I've turned it through and pressed it. So all I'm going to do is bring this up to the top of my bag. Okay, I've done nothing special. All I've done is brought it up to the top of my bag. Okay, and that's your halfway line. So we could put a little iron on that if we want. It's going to get pressed again, no doubt. So now what we need to do is, first of all, we need to stitch our side seams. Right, let's go to the side again, just so you can see what I'm going to do. So these side seams here need to be stitched, okay? So all you need to do is take the front of your bag, or you know, the right side of your bag, the main part, and flip it back. And you've exposed your pocket. And all you're going to do is stitch up there. Okay? You're going to do the same on this side. Okay? You're just going to flip it back. So make sure that zip is out of the way. I mean, to be perfectly honest, you could stitch over it, it's fine. But just flip it back. Let's see if I can do that. It's got lots of sticky tape on it. There we go. There we go. Let's fold it back. So that's what it looks like. And you're just going to stitch along here. 1/4 inch is perfectly fine. And then you're going to stay stitch this to the top of your bag. So let's do it. So fold it back, bring that, make sure your edges stay there. Just ignore the zip. You can cut it back if you want to. And I will trim it. Careful as you go over the teeth, especially if you've used a metal zip. 1/4 inch all the way down to the bottom, little back stitch. There we go. So that's one side done. So now with this side, I want you to see. So with this side, I'm just folding that back so you can see the edge of the pocket. Okay? And I'm going to stitch from there to there, or there to there, with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that actually then completes your pocket. I've got my slider there, so I'm just, yeah, no bother. I'm far enough away. There we go. So, oh, just caught that a little bit there. Just checking my stitches. I'm not sure that's caught that. I'm just going to stitch that bit again. Just the top part. I think my thread's got tangled up there somewhere. Okay, trim that piece of zip back. We don't need it, so might as well get rid of it. And this side as well. There we go. So apart from a lot of threads and lots of ends, and just keep trimming, just keep trimming. When you put on your birthday wish list a new sewing machine, get it with a thread trimmer. Right, so that's our pocket installed. There we go, you can see what it looks like. And those sides, all I've done is stitch from top to bottom on those sides. There's no need to go there. I've got to stay stitch the top, but when we open up that zip, if I hold that for the moment, you can see we've already got, can you see, we've got that lovely pocket in there. It's quite a nice, easy way of putting in a zip, surprisingly. So now I'm just going to top stitch right across the top of my bag, just holding all those layers together. And then we'll give that a trim. Something going on there. I think we've got a bit of tape coming down. So I'm just going to trim that, make it nice and neat. That's lovely. Let's do that bit again. Not bad. Okay. I'm just laughing at the fabric again. Okay, so there is our zip installed. And I mean, I've used a grey, but you could use a really super duper bright zingy colour, couldn't you? So now we've made the front of the bag, the flap, and the back of the bag. And all we need to do now is to actually put the gusset on. If you go to my website, lizzycurtis.com, you will see a tab that says Online Workshops. What does that mean, I hear you say? It means that I run online workshops via Zoom, which is really exciting. And pretty much every week, for about 2 or 3 weeks in advance, there's always a workshop to do, definitely on a Sunday afternoon, sometimes in the evening, sometimes midweek, but generally on a Sunday afternoon. It's a great time to meet all your friends, bring cake, bring a cup of tea, and make the most amazing projects with me. Now, with the gusset, you'll have 3 pieces. Okay, you've got the main piece there. Okay, now I decided to have my animals going sideways because it's all very well, but you could start off directional there. By the time you come up to this side, they're all upside down. So I thought I'll go sideways. And then you've got 2 pieces, little extra pieces that you add on because we're going to put our D-rings there, and it's nice to have them a little bit further down and encased into a seam. We could have folded the gusset, but I quite like putting an extra piece in. So all you're doing is stitching right sides together on both ends, 1/4 inch, and adding those 2 pieces in. Little back stitch. Just make sure your D-ring is well out of the way of your sewing machine. Just trim, you know, your foot. So there's one, look. There's one. You see? And then right sides together on the other end. Quarter of an inch seam allowance. All the way along. Little back stitch. Okay. And there's the other end there. You see? Right, so we've got to put the gusset in. Now, it's always a good idea to put a little notch in the centre because I start from the centre and come out, and then if I need to trim anything back at all, it's on this part and you don't get any puckering here, and it makes a nice smooth finish. So I'm going to start from the middle and come out. So a little notch there to denote the middle, and then in the bag itself, let's do the front first, why not? There's a little bit notch here, so I can't quite see it, so let's do it again. So a little notch there. And we might as well do the back while we're here. Probably need to trim that. If your wadding is a little bit bigger than your bag, it's sometimes you can't see the fabric, so sometimes it's better to trim and neaten that off. And the thing is, because we've cut a letterbox and we've manipulated this wadding, it will go out of shape. It's just, if you can imagine a felt and we're pulling it and pushing it about, it reacts accordingly. So I've cut my little notch. Let's do it a bit better than that. There we go. Put that down for a moment. So there's our front. We've got a lovely notch there. So we're going to do right sides together. So find the centre of your gusset, the centre of your bag, and you're just literally going to stitch it together all the way around. I don't know how well you can see that, but you're literally just stitching it. Now, like everything I do, I'm stitching the straight edge onto the curved edge. So flip it over so the gusset is on the top, and you're starting off with a back stitch, and you could also snip into this as you're coming to the curve, so not just yet. So we go past our tab, 1/4 inch, and then as we come up to that curve, I'm just going to snip into my gusset, not quite 1/4 inch, okay, not quite, because you don't want that to see. And when you actually lay the gusset down, it naturally curves around. It's really quite a nice bit of sewing because you can see it curve, and it really wants to sit nicely into that curve. Again, take your time, and you might want to adjust your stitch down to 2.5 or 2 even around that, just even if it's just the curve, and then come right up, open up your seam. I would put your seam so it's going down the bag. I'll show you in a sec. So this piece, this gusset piece, has already been stabilised and it's got the wadding on. And you might want to trim that wadding back a little bit. Oops, let's get on the right part of the bag. So you might want to trim that back a bit. So if I show you on here, you want that seam to go that way, okay, down the bag. And then when you open it up, it actually sits nicely. Okay, and you can see how neat that is. It's beautiful. So we've done half. So if I show you what we've done, so we've gone from the centre there all the way around. So now we're going to stitch the other half, and very bravely I go from the top there down. Okay, so just need to watch and make sure that you ease that in and that it's a perfect fit when you come round to the centre. Or you can start at the centre point and stitch the curve on top. So again, I'm pushing that seam down the bag, and then I'm just coming up to my curves now, and just the same as before, as I'm coming to that curve now, I'm just going to snip. And like I say, it's less than 1/4 of an inch. You'll be in trouble if you do 1/4 of an inch, and it'll want to curve. And try and keep the raw edges together, because if you don't, one piece is going to be longer than the other by the time you get round to where you started. It's just how it is. So just work your way round. There we go. And then just adjust if you need to. And then I just go over my original stitches. I don't bother with a back stitch at this point. There we go. Got an orange piece of thread from somewhere. So that's half of it done. And you see how that looks? Okay. So now obviously we need to stitch the back to that. So again, match up your notches and start. Well, let's do it so it's right sides together, shall we? Start from the centre. Oh dear. Start from the centre. You don't have to worry about turning gaps. This is the main part. There, I'm not on the straight part, and I really do like stitching on the straight. So when you come to that curve, don't forget to snip in, because it really does help. Try it and see. Try it without, try it with. And I would do, I don't know, let's say 8 snips, 1/4 of an inch apart for exactness. Keep those raw edges together. Don't be tempted to not do that, because like I said, it actually alters the length of the gusset, shortens it. So just bring it up to the top. Don't forget that seam wants to go down. Make sure your pocket doesn't get in the way as well. Your pocket's flapping about. So just make sure that goes down, and adjust if you need to. Because you're going in the opposite direction, it will probably want to go up. Tell it who's boss. Okay, so we've done one half. So now let's do the other half. And again, I'm starting from the top. It's just the way I do it. You might want to do it all in one go. But if you do that, seriously, if you do it all in one go, pin it like crazy, or clip it, use your quilting clips really well. Or make sure you've got your walking foot on, because all of those things will matter, trust me. And this is the last seam, and it'll always be that little bit more awkward because you've only got so many bits of fabric you can grab. I think this bag's going to look really nice in hippo fabric. I did think about making the pocket in a contrasting fabric, and then I chickened out. There's only so much out of my comfort zone I want to go. So, clipped into the straight edge of the gusset, coming round that curve now. I want to break into song. And then just straighten it up, ease it in. And if you didn't match those raw edges up, this will not meet, I promise you. So make sure that they're meeting, you know, the raw edges. Help it along. That's it. Come up to where you started. And straight over your stitches. No need to backstitch. You've done all that. So, oops. There's our main of our bag put together. You can clip those corners if you want to, and this will all benefit from a press. So just push all those curves out. So there is the main part of the bag, and you see got our little D-rings there, and we've got our D-rings in the side there. Look beautiful, don't they? So now what we need to do is to actually stay stitch our flap in place. So this is where you've really got to think about how the flap goes. So if we put it on the front of the bag, it's making me feel jolly, this fabric. It wants to go right sides together onto the back. So if I show you how that looks, so it's right sides together onto the back, like that. Okay, and we need to stitch that together. We need to find the center point, or you could judge it. It's probably, you're going to start, it's going to be about 1/4 of an inch in from your seam line. So if you want to, let's pop a clip in there while I've got hold of one, and just hold on to that. That's brilliant. So 2 clips there, look, that's going to hold it in place. And like I say, it's about 1/4 of an inch from your gusset seam. And we're just going to stay stitch. I'm going to take my table away because I'm using my free arm facility now just to feed my bag in the gap. Very handy. And we're just going to stay stitch all the layers on. There's my zip in the way, that's what it was. I was trying to figure out what was stopping me. It's my zip. There we go. Let's just move that. There we go. Got it now. So a little back stitch because you need that to be secure. So this is just stay stitching the flap in place, okay? Just watch that zip as you go by. So you're following the stay stitching that you did before on the top of the flap. Take the clip out, just bring it round. Another little back stitch, just to hold that nice and securely. There we go. Just get my threads. No, they're gone, disappeared. Oh, they've gone in there somewhere. So that's the flap install. So if we have a look at it like that, you can see it needs a press because these curves aren't nice and curvy. So now it's just a case of putting the lining in. So keep that like that, and then all you're going to do is pop your lining over the top. So I've got that already prepared. So it's just the back, the front, the gusset, and I've left a turning gap in there somewhere, down the bottom here. Wherever you like, you can put it on the sides or bottom. So it's right sides together. There's no back or front with the lining. So just feed that in. And I suppose the main thing is to get the side seams lined up as best you can. Put your clips in because it does help. The clips, if you've got a more sort of heavyweight project, the clips are quite nice to use. it doesn't drag the rest of the project down. If you're doing just 1 or 2 layers of fabric, really it's better to use perhaps pins. And I'm not a pin girl, but there are times and places for everything. So let's just clip that together. Okay, so that's that done. We know we've got a turning gap, so all right with that. Now it's just a case of stitching around the whole thing. So again, we're going to use the facility of our free arm. Just wondering where to start. Doesn't really matter. I'll start right in the middle. So 1/4 inch seam allowance again, thereabouts. And try to get it so those seams meet up. I mean, if they don't, please don't worry. It's going to be fine. So you're coming just all the way around. If you've got the needle down facility, this is a great time to use it because it'll hold, it's like a third hand really. It's going to hold everything in place. I might just do that because I'm so used to having that facility. And again, make sure your raw edges are all meeting. 1/4 inch all the way around. You may be wondering why I'm holding here. If I had my walking foot on, I wouldn't need to do that. It's just making sure all the layers are going through at the same time. I'm not pulling, I'm just holding it, I suppose. So now we're nearly there. And we're practically finished. We've just got the strapping to do, the webbing. So just coming round to the front where I started. There we go. And just run your stitches a little bit past where you started. It's neater than a back stitch. So there we are. Now we've just got to find a turning gap. Bring it all the way through. And this really will benefit now from a top stitch. And a good press, and I'm serious when I mean a good press. So you can see what sort of state we get in when we turn a bag through. Everything is creased and pushed and shoved, and yeah, it needs a press. So there we are. So the turning gap needs to be closed, so we can just run that under the machine now. So let's just do that. To just bring those seams together. Little back stitch. And then pull the other side. That automatically brings those turning gap edges together. And of course you can hand stitch this if you want. You don't have to machine it like me. Use your quilter's tape again if you want to, make a really neat job. Okay. What I will do is put the table back on because I'll need it in just a second. I don't like working just with the free arm all the time. I've got a piece of tape that keeps falling down. So let's just pop the lining in there. And like I said, you will need to give this a good press. I've lost my scissors. There they are. It's always a thread, isn't there? Because when you turn it through, look, you can see how the lining shows, and that's just not nice. You just give it some time and give it a press, and then top stitch it if you want to. You don't have to, but you could just to finish it off nicely. Another thread. I'm going to do that because it really does make a difference, and you can see now, look, how that looks. We can bring these little tabs up. There we go. You can see how that looks. Because it's not pressed and sorted properly yet. So let's just give it a little push about. Now then, let's just quickly do the webbing, because with the webbing, let's find it. I've got my slider here. So the first thing you need to do is the slider. Now with this webbing, it frays like mad, so I was going to do a zigzag on the end of it. But with the slider, let me show you here what you need to do. Here's your slider. You're going to pop it through one side. Okay, so your slider bit of metal is still in the centre, and then you're going to bring it back on itself. Okay, and that's your slider installed, and that'll help you with the adjustment. And I'm going to actually, well, I'd like to zigzag that so it's nice and neat. I have got my green thread in. And then just do your straight stitch over the top of that. Okay, so I'm going to do it because otherwise I'll put the bag together and it'll just annoy me if I haven't done it. So let's just get this done. And again, just watch all these threads, because they will, if they get in the way, they just look a little ugly. So just keep them out of the way. Now ideally, I've got a cream webbing here. You're going to use, there we are, it's just caught again. It's you're going to use cream thread, okay? But just for speed, we'll do it in the green. It doesn't look too bad. You get away with it. And then just neaten it off so it's nice and tidy. Not too bad. Just don't cut your stitches. So I've neatened off the end because this, like I said, this webbing does fray. And now I've just folded it back on itself, and I'm just going to stitch across there just to secure my webbing. So again, little back stitch. And if you want to do a rectangle again, do a rectangle. So I'm going back on myself, and let's just raise the needle. I don't need that facility at the moment. There we go. So there we go. I'll show you to the side there what that looks like. So I've zigzagged the end of my webbing, turned it through, and I've just top stitched that. Okay. So the other thing you need to do now is to put the other clips on. So here's my clips, and we're going to put one of those on one of these ends. So let's just organise myself here. There we go. So just, I've got the clip on the slider on one end. I've now got the other end, and I'm going to pop that through like that. Okay, and that can stay like that, that's fine. Doesn't have to go anywhere in particular. And then what I'm going to do is just make sure that is straight. I want the wrong side facing up, okay? I want the wrong side facing up. So if you look at it like that, that's how I want it. And I want to thread this end through. So look, if you have a look at it, let's try and get it so you can see right down to the other end. Okay, so I've got my other clip here, my other swivel clip. I just threaded it on. And then with this end, wrong side facing me, I'm going to thread that through and thread it through again. So that with this particular slider, there's not a lot of room. And that's the slider effect there. And then you can adjust it if you want and keep it so, and that's what it looks like when you've popped it on. And that will clip on here, look, that'll clip on here. There we go. So that clips on there nicely. And you've got the nice side, the pretty side, if you like, showing. Let's do it so we can see the pretty side. Now I've said it. So the pretty side is showing. Because it's a swivel, that'll always go where you want it to go. Okay. And then you're coming down to the other end. You've got your other D-ring here. I need to press this, as you know. And then we're going to zigzag this so it's neat. And then we're going to thread it through and top stitch it here. Okay, and then that's done. So let's just do the zigzag. And I think what I will do is just take a moment to press the bag. And to be honest, I would definitely top stitch around the top. If you're not confident with that, then just still give it a really good press, because that will help all your seams lay really flat. It does, like I keep saying, it does make a difference. I kind of like go on about it a little bit, but it's so worth it. I see so many beautiful things made and it's not been pressed, and I always think, I should have pressed it. Should have pressed it. I know you're all keen to show off your makes, and I'm just as bad as you, but you need to, you know, keep everything tidy. So again, if we go from the top here, there's our right side here of our slider bar. So we're just coming down to the other end, just threading that through away from me, folding it back. Okay, and then I'm just going to top stitch over the top and neaten that off. So it's about, I suppose it's about 1 inch. Back stitch, make it secure, because this is going to hold, it's going to take the weight of your bag. So whatever you've got in your bag, you know, sometimes I think we carry around house bricks, don't we? It's going to take the weight, so it needs to be lovely and strong. And get rid of those threads. Take some time on that. Really make it neat. Just keep at it. You'll end up covered in threads. I know some people wear an apron when they're stitching because of the amount of threads. But I knew I needed zigzag for this particular part, so I'm not using my regular machine, and it does make a difference. Anyway, so that's that part done. Let's pop the iron on. I won't top stitch, I'll just press this, and we can just clip this on the other side. It'll keep out of the way, I'm sure. If not, I'll just undo it. And because it's on a swivel, it doesn't matter really whether you put it on so you're seeing the wrong side or the right side at that point. It's perfectly fine. And let's get our mat in, and we'll give this a bit of an iron. And like I said, a top stitch will make a huge difference. It really will. And I think you'll really enjoy making this bag. I know I have, and I certainly love it in the hippo fabric. I wouldn't have thought for a minute I would, but I do. I do. So again, just, I know you can't see, but fold those edges in. You don't want to see the lining. You want to just fold that lining in. You could trim some of the fabric back if you want to. And if you've got a ham, you know, a pressing ham, then it's a good thing to get out and use that. So again, just take your time. I'm rushing a little bit. But it does, like I said, a million gazillion times makes a difference. So it's not too bad. I'd like to get some steam on it, to be honest. So you can see what it looks like. Let's make sure we don't iron ourselves. And you can see how the pocket's sitting nice and flat. And there's your flap coming over. So we can join up the hardware. So like I say, you could think about using these sort of clips. I don't know. I don't know if you think it might be too heavy. I suppose it depends what you're making your bag with. So you're just hooking that up. Could do with another breath. And there we are. And I hope you make loads.